Hi everyone, and today I'm going to show you how to use a technique for making something look like stone to turn this bottle. I think it was either an old oil bottle or an old vinegar bottle. I've been collecting them on my shelves. Every time I get an unusual bottle in my collection, something that we've emptied in the kitchen, then I save it so that I can make something spooky with it for a display that I use at Halloween. And I'm going to be using some tissue to turn this into a little bottle that I hope you will agree looks like a piece of stone. So I'm starting out by screwing up the tissue and then tearing it into more manageable pieces, and I'm going to coat this bottle with that tissue using a matte multi-medium. So the one that I'm using, there are lots on the market, but I quite like this Ranger one, and I am going to be using that to coat the bottle and to stick down the tissue. This is quite easy to do, but it's just a little bit messy. So I've got my craft mat down, got my tissue on standby to wipe my fingers if the tissue starts to stick to my fingers more than to the bottle. And the trick is to coat the bottle with the matte medium, then add your tissue, and you do want it to be crinkly, so encourage the crinkles and blend it or bend it around the shape of your bottle, and as you go you're going to cover the tissue on the top with that matte medium, as well as making sure that it sticks to the bottle. So there's glue on the bottle and there's glue on the tissue, and by coating the tissue as you go, each time you add a piece of tissue, it means that the next piece that you add, when it overlaps, it won't find any areas where there is no glue, so you should get lovely adhesion of the tissue. Tissue is great to work with on strange shapes like this because we want the crinkles, and it's nice and delicate so that it will bend around anything that you want to. In particular, the handle that I've got on this bottle, it was almost like turning the tissue into a paper mache. So once it was nice and wet with the glue, I could just squidge it around that handle, and I'm going to be doing the same around the spout of the bottle. I'm not bothering to cover the bottom of the bottle. If you wanted to put these onto perhaps a wooden surface, you might want to add a piece of felt to the bottom of your spooky bottles just to protect the surface of your furniture, but other than that you don't really need to cover the bottom anyway, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to encourage my bottle to rock once I have covered it with tissue. And by staying clear of the base of the bottle, I know that it's already flat and it should be fairly I was going to say solid, I mean stable, so that it's stable on the surface when I display this at Halloween. So my bottle is completely covered, and I'm going to put that to one side to dry, and then once it's dry we can add any kind of dimensional elements to add interest to this bottle. We could just turn it to stone as it is right now. We've got lots of nice texture going on, but I want to add a little bit more so that this bottle looks a little bit sculpted, like someone has been working on it and turning it into a really spooky container for a wicked potion. Now you can see here that I have some orange glue in my glue gun, and I am going to be using that because I'm going to be painting this up to attach these skulls to my bottle. So ignore the fact that this is orange glue and it looks a little bit odd as I put this on. It will all completely disappear once we get to the painting portion of this technique. Now I was trying to decide whether to bunch all of these rings up together, but I realised that I didn't have enough of these rings to keep them all together, so I'm going to try and space them out evenly around the bottle itself. Now you could add all sorts of things to these bottles. I like to collect lots of little spooky things. I go to the Halloween displays each year once everybody has finished buying their things and things start to go into the sales, and I look for small elements that I can just put in my little Halloween box, and they really come in handy the next time I'm thinking about making some kind of Halloween project. So I had these rings that I bought from a supermarket. I think they were sort of designed to go into Halloween trick-or-treat bags so that you could give something other than sweets. So you can get little skulls from Tim Holtz now. He does a lovely range of skulls that you could also use to decorate a bottle like this. And you might look out for things that have skulls hanging from chains, decorations that were meant to be hung around your house, and look at the small elements that might be dangling from them. Spiders would be good, rats and mice you could have crawling up your bottles, and we can turn them to stone with this technique. So I'm dividing my bottle into 4 at first. And because of the shape of this, I'm just being a little bit careful of using plenty of glue to make sure that I get good adhesion of these skulls around that sort of dip or shape section of the bottle. So sometimes when you get around to putting these little decorations all the way around your bottle, you might find that you haven't quite got your spacing right by the time you come to put those last elements in place. Now you've got 2 choices. Either you can pull the element away carefully, try not to disturb too much of that tissue, and then just re-glue it, because really the texture, any sort of damage that you create as you pull it away, should be quite easy to incorporate into this old stone design. But also you could think about perhaps reheating the glue gently with your heat gun. Just be a little bit careful if the elements that you've added are plastic. Really aim that heat at the glue, and you can see here that I could, if I decide to remove any of these skulls, I could heat from above, and I would be able to hit that glue and just soften it enough that I could squidge or just shuffle that little skull around a little bit further to make them nice and evenly spaced. But let's face it, this is supposed to be a spooky bottle, and it really won't matter if things aren't completely perfect. And then for the final little bit of decoration, this one's a little bit wobbly, just adding a bit more glue to make sure that it stays attached to the bottle. I'm thinking that I want to add 2 more skulls to the neck of the bottle. So once you're happy with your design, I did think that I might add the word poison to this bottle, because I've got some little wooden letters, and you can see that here that I'm starting to look to see if I've got the right letters in my little stash. These could be any kind of dimensional element, and once we've covered it with that stone paint technique, then it would just look as if the words were popping out of that stone, as if someone had carved them there. And I'm looking for the word poison. I'm just changing some of the letters because I didn't have the right letters. So I turned a P into an I turned an R into a P, and a Q into an O, and an L into an I, and got my word poison. But at this point I thought, actually, I think it's a little bit fussy for what I want, so I'm going to save that for another bottle that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you hopefully 3 bottles in total this Halloween, and I do have lots of other Halloween elements on my videos, and every now and again you'll see something pop up and it will link to one of my Halloween videos. So if you're into making home decor pieces to make your house look gorgeous and spooky, then those are the links that you might like to click on. So now we're getting on with that sort of paint technique, and I'm going to be turning this into a sort of grey stone bottle. You can use any shades of colour that you like. You might want to make something that looks a bit more like marble, and you would have to use sort of paint colours that fit the stone effect you're trying to achieve. And I'm going to go for a really quick and easy way to make this look like it is no longer made out of glass, but everything has been cut from a piece of stone. So I'm starting out with a base colour, and I used a little bit of raw umber with an antique white and a black acrylic paint. And you can see I've got a wide brush, a wide flat brush, and I'm just trying to colour the entire bottle, covering especially that orange glue with this grey base coat. Now I would say that as you are painting and trying out this technique, it really doesn't matter how many times you try to get this right. And I found that building up layers and layers of texture actually makes this look more realistic. So don't worry too much. Just knocked off one of my skulls there. Don't worry too much if you are looking at it and thinking, oh, it's not quite right. Just keep working at it. Keep adding those layers. So once you've got your base coat, we're going to start adding texture. So I always like to let that base coat dry just to make sure that everything is covered, and then we can start adding the texture once the whole bottle has been turned to my base shade. So you can see here that I am going to make different shades of colour as I work. So I'm putting the three main colours that I used to make that grey base coat, and I'll be using combinations of those as I go. And I'm starting out by adding a dark grey to my skulls. I'm painting them entirely in the dark grey because once I have finished that stone technique, I will just add a lighter layer over the top. I'll dry brush them, and that will bring out the details of these what will become stone skulls. So I haven't gone black, I've gone dark grey. I've just mixed a little bit of white into that black paint, and then I'm just brushing over the entire skulls. I'm not worried about the backs of the skulls. I just want that top area where I'm going to do the dry brushing to be ready once the rest of the technique has been completed. And this is all about having ideas. I could have used lots of different things, as I said before, to make texture on this bottle. It doesn't have to be skulls. I could have used rope, string. I could have stuck on gemstones even, just to add texture and create patterns on this bottle. Now I've got a round brush, quite a stiff brush, and I am gradually mixing up different shades of paint and stippling them in random areas all over the bottle. So it really does pay to use an old brush for this, because you're just really going to be stabbing at the bottle and adding that paint in lots of different shades over the bottle. Don't forget the top of the bottle, and of course don't forget the handle. And I'm just trying to create areas of light and shade and texture. That the stippling gives it the texture, and the different shades of paint create those areas of light and shade. And like I said, the more you work it, the better it looks. So what starts out as looking a bit patchy at first, the more colours you add and the more times you blend one over the other, the more it just becomes the texture of the stone. So you can see the more I work it, the more it's looking like little dots of paint that I've stippled onto a glass bottle, and the glass bottle starts to look like stone. If you see a particular area that perhaps is a little bit too prominent, an area of shading that you've put on and you think that's just standing out a little bit too much, mix either a slightly lighter or a darker shade, and you can see some of the areas there that I've gone a little bit dark, and I'm just blending them back out with a slightly lighter shade. And I'm just stippling that paint all the time onto my bottle. And now I'm going to reveal all that lovely shading on those skulls, and this part is really quite exciting, and it brings the whole thing to life. It makes those skulls look like they are part of the bottle. So I've mixed a shade of paint that I've already used to stipple on the bottle itself, so that these stones look like they've been chiselled from a solid piece of stone. This whole bottle, I'm thinking, has been carved from one piece of stone. So I'm taking a little bit of paint on my finger, and the drier the better, and then just brushing my finger lightly over those skulls, and it just picks up that paint on all of the raised areas and reveals that spooky skull hewn from the stone. And as I was doing this, I was really quite pleased at how well this was actually turning out. Now, if you get any paint on to the bottle itself and it's not quite the right shade and it looks a bit odd because it's not stippled on, when you sort of brushing this on with your finger, you can easily rub it off while the paint's still wet. You could use a baby wipe, or you could just stipple again over that area just to blend it back into that stone effect. So the other thing that it's handy to keep, and quite often comes with these unusual shaped bottles, is the cork, or at least source a cork next time perhaps someone's opening a bottle of wine that you can add to the top of your bottle. And I've put my cork into place, and I'm going to be wrapping it with these beads. So this is an old broken necklace. It's got lots and lots of those lovely small beads, and I'm gradually going to wind the strands of this necklace around this cork to decorate it. So I've been careful as I've cut the strings of beads from the original necklace to add a little dot of hot glue to the string to stop the beads all falling off and ending up on the floor. And I'm just going to carefully coil this string of beads all the way around this cork in order to decorate it. So I'm just making sure I start off very close to where the cork sits within the neck of the bottle. I'm just trying to get it as close as possible, try not to unwrap it as I go. And then I'm just putting little dots of hot glue around the cork as I wrap the beads. It's a little bit fiddly, and I'm trying not to get too much glue standing or poking out from between the beads. So keeping that little dot of glue as small as I can, so it's going to hold it in place, but it's not going to squeeze out too much between the rows of beads. So I'm going to have to use a couple of strands of this necklace in order to do this. So you could also use other things. You could actually string your own set of, these are called seed beads. We used to call them love beads when I was a teenager. And if you have some seed beads, you could thread them onto a string and use them to wrap around and decorate your cork. So you could choose any colour that you wanted, really, that went with the stone effect that you create. You could alternatively perhaps have the cork wrapped in a string, or you could use some kind of cording if you wanted to have a little bit more of a luxurious cork to go with your stone poison bottle. I think if you ever look at any of the videos that I've made for Halloween projects, I've I like that spooky look, but I also like a little touch of glitter and glamour to go along with this witchy theme. So continue wrapping the beads till you get towards the top of your cork, and then you've got two options. You can continue wrapping until you completely cover the entire cork, or you can do what I'm going to do. It's cheat a little bit. I had one of these lovely dazzlers from Creative Expressions, and I'm going to put that to cover the top of the cork. Make sure that final piece of beading is secured well with the last blob of glue, because you don't want that unraveling and beads spilling everywhere. And then you can cover the end of the workings of your coil with the dazzler. So I'm just adding a nice puddle of hot glue. Be careful that it doesn't squeeze out as you push that final dazzler into place. So I'm just making sure it's really pushed down well. And at that point I decided, actually, I'm going to add something else and I'm going to take it off again. So this could quite easily be a charm or a tassel that you have made to finish off your cork, and I just wanted this little extra dangly dimension. So I'm going to remove what actually was the beaded bobble that was used to fasten this necklace, and I'm going to use it as a little decoration that dangles off the edge of my cork. Luckily I made that decision quite quickly and my glue was still tacky, and you can see I'm just removing a few beads so that I can just pop the strings of this tassel into that glue. That will keep it safe and stop all those beads from falling away. And then I'm going to add a little bit more hot glue and reattach that black dazzler, and that will be my cork finished. So I think that my beautifully carved stone flagon of poison deserved a really fancy cork stopper, and that's what I think you'll agree I've managed to achieve. So back on with that dazzler, and being very careful not to squeeze out any of that glue, because I don't want that really hot puddle of glue to go onto my fingers. And then I'm just using my heat gun to get rid of any of the straggles of glue that comes all as part and parcel of using a hot glue gun. You always get some little stray strands of hot glue whilst you're working with it. So that's the trade-off for working with a hot glue gun that sort of instantly sticks things down, and they're quite easy to get rid of. Just give them a quick blast with your heat gun and they kind of shrink away to nothing. And that's my potion bottle, all ready for the final piece of decoration. If you remember, I had that orange glue in my glue gun. I just thought I might try making some little embellishments with the hot glue, and you can see that's what I've done on my craft mat, and I've let that glue dry and you can peel them away. So actually these would be quite fun on a spooky Halloween bottle as well. So perhaps if you had a black bottle and all of these gorgeous orange studs would look quite nice. So all I did was add little puddles of glue of different sizes to this non-stick craft mat, and once they're dry they really do make a lovely little embellishment. Obviously you're not going to be able to attach these with hot glue because it would remelt them, but you can attach them with any other kind of glue. So back to the potion bottle, and I'm really liking how it's turned out, but I think it just needs that little extra touch of sparkle, and I'm going to do that by adding some gems to the eyes of my skulls. Not my skull, but these skulls. So using some glossy accents, I can squeeze it out of the bottle. I'm just going to add these grey gemstones to the eyes of all the skulls on these bottles. Sometimes they're a little bit fiddly, and you can use something like a cocktail stick or a barbecue skewer to help you push them into place. And then once you've added all those sparkles, I'm going to call this potion bottle complete, ready to accept some wicked concoction to cast a spell on somebody on Halloween. And I hope you agree that this is a real fun potion bottle and would look great in amongst lots of other potion bottles. Now there are 3 other potion bottles so far on one of the videos on my YouTube channel, and I will leave you links throughout this video to different Halloween projects. Like I said, one of them was 3 other decorated bottles, and I'm sure that you're going to find lots of different techniques that you could use on potion bottles of your own. And these really are fun to make because the sky's the limit. Just use your imagination and you can go dark and gruesome, or you can go a little bit glamorous like me and create a lovely display to put somewhere in your house for Halloween. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed these tutorials, you can always hit the like button, the share button, or the subscribe button, and any combination of those buttons. You could always pop over and check me out on Facebook and on my blog. I'd love to have you leave comments down below, and all of that liking and sharing helps promote my YouTube channel. So a great big thank you from me, and until next time, and probably another spooky potion bottle, or perhaps the sneak peek that's at the end of this video. Thank you for watching.